Why, you know, it'd be like making love to a plastic woman. There would be no surprise in it, no sudden answering touch, as when we touch another human being, it's not like touching something made of plastic. There comes out a response, something unexpected. And that's what we really want. When we want to relate to the other. You see, you can't experience the feeling you call self unless it's in contrast with the feeling of other. It's like known and unknown, light and dark, positive and negative. Other is necessary in order for you to feel self. So then, isn't that the arrangement you want? And so in the same way, couldn't you say the arrangement you want is not to remember? Memory is always, remember, a form of control. I've got it in mind, I remember it, I know your number. You're under control. Now, if you go on remembering and remembering and remembering, it's like writing on a piece of paper and going on writing and writing and writing until there's no white space left on the paper. Your memory is filled up. And so you need to wipe it all clean so that you have a white paper all over again and can begin to write on it once more. So that's what death does for us. It wipes the slate clean, and also, for looking at it from the point of view of population and the human organism on the planet, it keeps cleaning us out. And the idea of a technology which would enable each one of us to be immortal would be something that would progressively crowd the planet with people with hopelessly crowded memories. They would, as it were, be like people living in a house where they'd accumulated so much property, so many books, so many vases, so many sets of knives and forks, so many tables and chairs, so many newspapers, that there wouldn't be any room to move around. To live, we need space. And space is a kind of nothingness, and death is a kind of nothingness. It's all the same principle. And by putting blocks, as it were, or spaces of nothingness, spaces of space, in between spaces of something, we get life properly spaced out. To use the German word Lebensraum, room for living. That's what space gives us, and that's what death gives us. Now look, notice that in everything I've said about death, I haven't brought in anything that I could call spookery. I haven't brought in any information about anything that you don't already know. I haven't invoked any mysterious knowledge about souls, memory of former lives, anything like that. I've just talked about it in terms that we already know, so that if you say, well, all this idea that people have of life beyond the grave is just wishful thinking, I say, okay, I'll grant that. Let's assume that that is wishful thinking, and that when we're dead, there just won't be anything. See? Let's face that fact. That'll be the end. Now, notice, first of all, that's the worst thing you've got to fear. Does it frighten you? Who's going to be afraid? Supposing it ends, no more problems. But then, you will see that this nothingness, if you followed my argument, is something, as it were, you bounce off from again, just as you bounced in the first place when you were born. You bounced out of nothingness. Nothingness is a kind of bounce, because it implies, the nothing implies something. So you bounce back. All new, all different. Nothing to compare it with before. A refreshing experience. And if, therefore, you get this sense, just like you've got the sense of nothing behind your eyes, get the sense of nothingness, very powerful, frisky nothingness, underlying your whole being. And there's nothing in that nothing to be afraid of. Then, with that sense, you can come on like a person, for whom the rest of life is gravy because you're already dead. You know you're going to die. We say there's one thing certain, which is death and taxes. And the death of each one of us now is as certain as it would be if we were going to die 5 minutes from now. So where's your anxiety? Where's your hang-up? Regard yourself as dead already, so that you have nothing to lose. Turkish proverb says, he who sleeps on the floor will not fall out of bed. So in the same way, the person who regards himself as already dead, therefore you are virtually nothing. 100 years from now, you'll be a handful of dust. That'll be for real. All right, act on that reality.
You're listening to the Psychedelic Salon, where people are changing their lives one thought at a time.
Oh, did I hear that right? 100 years from now, you'll be a handful of dust. That'll be for real. All right, act on that reality. Well, that's what he said, and then the recording ended. So, how do I act on that reality? I guess the answer to that question would be different for each and every one of us. For me, I guess it's doing these podcasts is how I'm acting on the reality that 100 years from now, this biological avatar I call Lorenzo will be walking around no more. So I guess I'm trying to leave a little bit of me here. In fact, sometimes little children seem to figure out the fact before we do that we're going to die. About a year or so ago, I was carrying one of my grandchildren down a flight of stairs, and she was on my back with her arms wrapped around my neck when I said, "You know, when I'm 100 years old, I won't be able to carry you down the stairs like this." And without missing a beat, she said, "Yeah, because you'll be dead by then." And I still have to laugh when I think about that moment. Maybe it's only the very young and the very old who take death as lightly as we probably all should. And, of course, I'm not alone when I say that, at least for me, learning how to manage a deep psychedelic trip has been exactly the kind of training I think I need to successfully navigate that big trip that all of us will one day experience. Now, I probably shouldn't even mention this, but I have to take exception with what Alan Watts just said about what he thought worries all of us about death. Namely, that when we're dead, there may be nothing at all forever. My worry is just the opposite, that there actually is existence of some kind after we die. The possibility that after death there is simply non-awareness or non-existence doesn't seem to be something worth worrying about to me. In fact, I can think of a wide range of reasons why this should actually be a state to be hoped for rather than feared. And that's why I included the warrior's lament in the mountaintop farewell scene in the Genesis generation. For some strange reason, it brings a great deal of peace to my mind, possibly because it's so contrary to the brainwashing about heaven that my young mind was exposed to in Catholic school. If you heard my book, I'm sure you remember how it goes. I can hear my comrades calling. I can hear them calling me from the other side, to the place where all great warriors go. Do not mourn for me, for it is the end all great warriors face. Do not mourn for me, for I will never know. As I said, I can't say why that refrain touches me so deeply, but it certainly does bring a strange peace to my mind when I think of my comrades who are no longer walking this planet with me. In some strange way, it motivates me to continue on, but without having to carry the baggage of my thoughts about what I could have or should have done or said before they left. Perhaps it's just another way of saying, let the dead bury the dead. Life is for living, and we still have some dancing to do, which is where living is at its best, especially when it's under the stars with a few thousand of our closest friends all kicking up the dirt on the dance floor with us. Now, I'd like to close today with just a brief comment about the rescue of the miners in Chile. If you were following that story, my guess is that you felt a great deal of empathy for the trapped miners and for their families and friends. And no matter what your opinion is about the extensive television coverage, you have to admit that, if nothing else, this event has helped us put faces on those brave people who go down into the earth each day and dig out minerals and gems that we so often take for granted. When you give somebody a piece of jewelry with a precious stone in it, or when you use your computer or MP3 player? Do you give any thought to the women and men who labored under deplorable conditions underground to bring out the minerals that make those computers hum and the jewelry sparkle? Until now, I have to admit that they were invisible to me as well. But now I have the faces of the men and their families imprinted indelibly on my mind. And so, the next time I think I need to get the latest MP3 player or a new computer, I'm going to think long and hard about upgrading, because now I can see the faces of the people who are risking their lives every day just to bring us more stuff. According to an article from BBC that I read, there are over 10,000 miners who are killed in accidents each and every year. That means that during the 70 days that we watched and waited for the rescue of the 33 Chilean miners, there were about 2,000 other miners who died in other accidents. And some estimates push the total number of mining fatalities each year as closer to 20,000. At this very moment, there are hundreds of thousands of our fellow humans who are deep under the earth, sweating, straining, and digging for us so that we can continue to enjoy the wonders of high tech and high fashion. I realize that this problem is another one of those things that are so large that we more or less just throw our hands up and surrender and simply look the other way when an issue like this surfaces. And I don't have any solutions myself other than to promise myself that I'm never going to again replace anything electronic unless it no longer works, and not just because I want a little more speed for my graphics programs. So I celebrate the wonderful rescue and the brave hearts of everyone involved in the miraculous rescue that we all just witnessed, and at the same time I send my love and support to the families of the 25 or so women and men who will die in other mining accidents today and every day from here on out until enough people raise their voices against the oligarchs who are squeezing the life out of the world's miners by forcing them to work in unfit and unsafe environments. Until we're able to recognize the divinity in not just ourselves, but in everyone else on this planet, I'm afraid these tragedies are going to persist. I'm currently reading a novel by John Fowles in which one of his characters says, "There comes a time in each life like a point of fulcrum. At that time you must accept yourself. It is not any more what you will become. It is what you are and always will be." So, what are we? What do we stand for? And what are we going to do about it? Well, that's going to do it for now, and so I'll close today's podcast by reminding you once again that this and most of the podcasts from the Psychedelic Salon are freely available for you to use in your own audio projects under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 3.0 license. And if you have any questions about that, just click the Creative Commons link at the bottom of the Psychedelic Salon webpage, which you can find at psychedelicsalon.org. And if you're interested in the philosophy behind the salon, you can hear all about it in my novel, The Genesis Generation, which is available as a pay-what-you-can audiobook that you can download at genesisgeneration.us. And for now, this is Lorenzo signing off from Cyberdelic Space. Be well, my friends.